Welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who walked away from a pre-med path, figured out she was built for business, and has been helping people navigate one of the biggest financial decisions of their lives for the past 26 years. She has worked every corner of this industry, from brokerage to construction lending to retail, and now runs a branch where she leads her team the same way she manages her clients, with deep care, real commitment, and zero tolerance for the transactional. Amber Lampe, welcome to the Lowdown.
Thank you, Connor. I'm really excited to be here. I appreciate you asking me to talk with you today.
Absolutely. And it's been great getting to know you. And so I'm excited for the audience to get to know you the way I have and just hear your story, because it's a really interesting one. And I'll kind of start with what I referenced there in the introduction. I mean, you were on track to be a doctor and spent your last sort of college semester in an internship that made you realize maybe medicine wasn't the future for you. What did that feel like? And how fast did
the family, the parents weren't real happy, I'll be honest. So basically I was in my internship and I didn't enjoy going to the hospital and working in the environment. And then I started doing some soul searching of like, what did I envision my future look like? And I realized at that point, I had never seen myself in a hospital setting. I think sometimes, especially when you're young, you don't know what you want to do. There's a lot of pressure of, hey, you're really good at math. You're really great at science. And then you think, okay, what can I make money at? In that realm. And of course it was a doctor. Let's be a doctor. So I was miserable. Honestly, I just wasn't happy. And I realized, thankfully, that I was able to self-reflect and think, okay, if I'm not happy, this is not the right path for me. How do I pivot? And then what do I do? Thanks to God that I found the mortgage lending in a different path. It took a little bit, but very blessed. And I love what I do now. So that's great.
Well, I think it's not an uncommon story. Your version is your version of it, but I mean, this industry is full of lost souls, people who are sort of wandering, trying to figure out what it was they wanted to do. My degree is in fine arts. I was an actor and a director for all of my college years. And then, somehow I end up in mortgage. And, so I think we all have our own kind of stories of that pathway to this business. How did you find the mortgage business specifically? Like, how did you get into the industry?
So that's funny. Answered an ad. So I had graduated. I still got my degree. I did graduate college. I just was able to change I had a major and 2 minors. So I was able to switch it to like a general degree. And my student loan payments was, it's not a blessing, but I had interest in accruing the entire time I was in college based on the student loans that I was able to get, which wasn't great. So I had payments that are due right away. So I just answered an ad and I started working in a collection company. It was awful experience, but I sat there and, you had to raise your hand to ask to go to the bathroom. Very unique. But the sales portion and working with clients, building a relationship with them, helping them on setting up a path to make payments. I was really good at that. And that really did help me with negotiation skills that you just don't realize at the time. So I did that. And then one of my good friends went to a finance company from there. She called me and said, hey, I just went to a finance company, more money, which of course I needed. And I thought it would be interesting to do something different. Obviously, collections was just a job that I worked at for a few months to pay bills. When I was trying to figure out, at that point, I was taking a gap year and I was still considering something in the medical field. It wasn't just doctor, it was more maybe x-ray tech or something. I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And so I ended up going to the finance company. I got hired and I got to learn all sides of lending, worked with the loan officer who was sending me at the time second mortgages. And then she sat down with me and that was when we were doing a lot of first and seconds. And so she sat down and was explaining what she did, how much money she made. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. What? When she was telling me what she was doing and she had all this flexibility. And I was on the management path at that point at the finance company. And so I said to her, I was like, I would love to learn more. Ended up meeting with the team, went straight commission. Very scary, but I knew what I was capable of. I had a lot of self-belief. I grew up, my dad was listening to Dale Carnegie when we were driving. So all that stuff really does make a difference. And I had a complete support from my parents, which was great for me to do it and try it. My dad had done insurance sales for years. So I had kind of seen how that worked. So yeah, so I went to a finance company first, and then I jumped straight into the mortgage. So that all happened, collections a few months, finance company for 8 maybe months. So about a year after graduation, a little over a year from college, I started mortgage full time, and I haven't looked back.
I love that. And I want to make a special call out there because there's a difference, right? I hear this often. People see how much someone else makes, or they kind of see a lifestyle of somebody and they admire that lifestyle. They want what they have, but not everyone does what it takes to get it. And I think there's a special attribute of someone to go out and start doing the things and take immediate action. And something that I've observed that's common among all the people who've been on the lowdown performing loan officers is that they take immediate action. I might recommend a book and they immediately write it down and order it while we're talking. These are these little actions, these little things that say this is someone who's going to just go all in. And so I love that you did that. Now, along the way, I guess, you've had, as you're just talking to other people who are in the business, maybe comparing styles, things like that. A peer had sort of described their process or their style of work as like fast food, McDonald's, right? Like fast, volume driven, done. We just slide it on through next. And you said that was everything that you didn't want to be, right? So how do you actually define the difference between transactional and relational in the way that you run your business?
Yeah, it's something I just pride myself on. I mean, you can look at, reviews and see. I love getting to know a client, understanding their goals, looking at it more from a financial planning, big picture. It's not transactional. It's not about this closing. Actually, it's about maybe the next one or the next one, or where do you see your future? I think there are a lot of people in this business that are transactional. McDonald's is a great example. Like, what you get. I'm not a McDonald's fan, just personally. Yes, they have a great business model and you know what you get, and it's fast and it's quick, but I just don't think it's great food, right? So for me, I'd rather be a restaurant. Like, how do you want your burger prepared? Do you want toppings? What do you want on the side? I mean, that is a great analogy for how I pride myself on how I work with my clients, is just really getting to understand them and their goals, and delving into. It's interesting when you are transactional, which again, many people pride themselves on, volume based, boom, 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 done, done, right? I want to understand them on a deeper level, because I think once you start asking those extra questions and you aren't transactional and you look at it as a lifelong relationship and you take care of your clients, that you do see that there's a lot of times that what they first tell you is their goal is not really what their goal is, right? So that's where I see the difference of not being transactional. And I, like you said, that's something that I am the exact opposite of. And I try really hard to make sure people know, if you want transactional, that is not who I am. So,
yeah. And one of the ways that you've been living that out over, nearly 20 years, you're sending a physical, in the mail, snail mail, USPS quarterly newsletter
so old
to your database.
Yeah.
And one of your top referral sources became a client because of it. Walk us through that system. Like, what does it actually look like to do that? Because it sounds like a heavy lift, but it's something that you've perfected over the years. So I'm just kind of curious, like, how does it work and how does it win?
Yeah. So I just realized early on, again, not being transactional, that, I got to know clients on a deep level. And then a lot of loan officers don't do any type of database or CRM. And for me, I wanted to make it more personal. So then I started thinking about, how do I do that? I had gone to a seminar where they wanted you to email the client a newsletter and then, put some personal touches in it. I also knew that I wanted something physically to come to their home, because I know how it feels to go to the mailbox and have something personal in there, something that's to you, versus junk mail. So I started doing a newsletter. I figured out how to create a template. Back in the day, it was on Publisher on my laptop. I created it, and I knew once I had the template built and I had using different examples, then I would actually physically, 20 years ago, physically mail them out or print them at my office. I would do labels or handwrite with the help of my assistant at the time. And then we would mail out newsletters. So my goal originally was pretty aggressive, and I was like, oh, I'll do it monthly. That, when you're doing it yourself, that's just not possible. So I did move it down to quarterly, and I do think that's been very effective. So quarterly for 20 years, I have sent out a newsletter, and in that newsletter is something about mortgage, some type of education piece. It does include, I call it the latest on the Lampes. So it's very interesting. We'll run into people out in public that I haven't seen in 15, 20 years, and they'll come up and be like, oh my gosh, how's your daughter doing in college? Because they've seen it on the update of the newsletter. So I keep there's personal information in there, just about our family and keeping people updated. They love that. And then there's, a recipe. Clients do call me and say, hey, I made your recipe and I love it, or I did this instead of that. It's a way to just engage that I think a lot of people just take that for granted. I want that engagement. So again, not transactional. So I've been doing a newsletter, a physical in the mail newsletter. And now we have, the company I'm at has an amazing marketing team. Yeah, I met with them and said, this is non-negotiable. This is what I do. And then now they help create it with me, and they print it for me, and they help mail it for me, but it's still physically going out to the client. So that saved me some time. But yes, it's something that
absolutely.
I pride myself on, and I know my clients do like it. And honestly, Connor, when I send a newsletter, I'm guaranteed to get some type of call, some type of email every single time that I send.
Love that. And you set it up by treating the loan, that experience, like a relational experience as well, so that people care about what they're getting in the mail. If it was a transactional process and they got something from you, it kind of be like, so what? But the way that, it really speaks to probably how you make them feel throughout the process, that they still would care to receive that newsletter, run into you in the grocery store and say, it's great to hear about your daughter in college and things like that. I think that's really awesome. So something else you did that I thought was a little unconventional, but I want to give you a chance to explain like how it works, why it works, is that instead of just doing a regular traditional kind of lunch and learn, you got a group of agents together to make candles together. Like, what are your thoughts on why an event like that stands out or does more for your business relationship than doing just like the lunch and learn?
Yeah. So, with it being non-transactional, it's the same thing with the realtor partners. It's not transactional, right? So I am always, and especially with my team, I'm always looking to figure out like, what can we do that's a little bit different, and just spend more time and get to know them on a personal level versus a lunch and learn, which is all educational, which is important. We still do those, for the record, but I try to throw in something fun at least once or twice a year. And so last year we did, as a team, it was actually one of my teammates' ideas. And at first I was like, okay, but great, why not? And I'm always open to that. So we did candle making last year, and it went over so well because again, everyone's sitting around as a group. They get to pick their own candle out. They get to make it, pick their own scent. It was just, everybody was laughing and having fun, and we had food and drinks. And then at the end of the day, they got to keep their candle, right? It was a reminder of, and then we were really creative, and we did some pretty cute stickers on there of like, get lit with lending with, amber or whatever. So like we got creative and kept it mortgage focused, but still just, again, relational, spend time. We switched it up. So like last year we did that, and this year we're doing something different. We haven't rolled it out yet, but if someone's listening to this, they're gonna know it's coming. We're doing an axe throwing day. So,
Okay.
Every year we come up with something as a team that is different, that is interactive, is spending time with our realtor partners. So it's hard because we do have to limit that, right, from a space standpoint. But I just think it's so important that you spend personal time with as many realtor partners that you can and get to know them on an intimate level. Again, not just transactional.
Yeah, I think it's super smart. Like, it's a memorable event. With the candles, they get to walk away something that they take pride in, and that every time they light it, they'll remember that event and connect it to you and your team. So really, really smart. And then just that opportunity to build that relationship and have genuine conversations that aren't all about business all the time, right? You've got to find space to be able to make it personal and build those kind of relationships with business partners that you can also do life with. And that's something I find is pretty common among, again, guests on the show, is that they find a way to do life with the people that they do business with. They kind of weave it all together. And as a result, you're working with people you like, and they're working with someone they like. And, when you do business with people you like, you want to send more business to those people. So it, kind of ends up working out well in the end. Now, you take it even one step further with something you started in the past by giving away pies on Thanksgiving, and now the genie is out of the bottle with that. So what is the lesson in that for loan officers who are kind of thinking about building a client appreciation tradition, but might be worried about the long-term commitment? Because when people love it, you gotta keep
Yep.
doing it. You gotta keep
Yeah.
bringing it.
It's kind of one of those, it's great. And so it was more of trying to figure out, I do client appreciation. I have, again, in my quarterly newsletter, I always, at least once a year, if not twice a year, I'm promoting a client appreciation event, always. And so again, I'm trying to be creative and be, unique and do something that adds value. That's the biggest piece, is adding value to the clients. Like, what would they use? And so I had done, I've done game days and movie days, and I've done, ice cream. And then I had someone say, hey, you should do pies for Thanksgiving. And I was like, well, that's something unique, and why not? And now it's a great event. I'm telling you, I had at the time, 3 athletes in high school, and they all played basketball. We're a big basketball house. And so giving away pies the week of Thanksgiving when there's basketball games going on that was hard, because I can't miss a game. It's just something that that was just non-negotiable for me. And like, I've got to, if my kids are playing, I'm going to be there. So, but I started the pie event, and now I'm on, oh gosh, maybe 8 years. But I have clients who literally, post about it, and they talk about how they rely on my pies to help for their family for Thanksgiving. So there's no turning that back at this point, right? Once you start that, you got to finish it, because you have clients who literally tell me every year and come every single year. And it's a great event because they're coming in person, they're meeting with me. I'm getting to hear their updates of their life story and their family. And, of course you ask, how's the house and how's, like everything going. So it's a great event, but it is one of those that isn't something that you can change every year. And now that I've started it, there truly is no going back on that, because I have so many clients that tell me that they count on it. So if I didn't send it out, another thing unique that I do, Connor, that we hadn't talked about, is I send out local football magnets for the colleges where, Iowa doesn't have professional football here, right? We do close. I'm a Chiefs fan, but that's too far away. So I would do magnets. Well, one year I decided to not send out football magnets of the local colleges. And I had calls from clients saying, why did I not get a magnet from you? So what you don't realize is those are the things that a lot of times people don't tell you or give you feedback on what you're doing, and you hope it works, but stop doing it, and I'll tell you, you'll get feedback. So
You'll find out.
I did that one year that I decided not to send out magnets, and that has never happened since, because it is something, again, that people put on their fridge and that they look forward to keeping, the schedule. And on the back, it's college, but on the back I put like Monday night football games. So anyway, yeah.
So
I do a lot of different things.
I have to ask, and I know when this airs, it's going to be maybe a month removed from it actually happening, but you're a basketball family. You had to have been watching March Madness last week with the corner 3 from Iowa. Did that, was the Lampe household just like on fire in that moment?
Oh my gosh. So it's so true, because again, so here's even more so that my daughter was back from college, right, for the weekend. And so my son was there. So, and then our other daughter was either on FaceTime or texting us. So both my older girls go to the University of Iowa. So when Fulguera stepped back and like drained that 3, right? Yeah. I mean, we literally like erupted. I jumped out of my seat. We're very into basketball, right? So I'm up, my husband and I are like high-fiving, but we're like, no way. I mean, it was so a great experience. And then my daughter, and she's going to love this when it airs, my oldest, and she sent me a text and it said, I may have teared up, watching that live. Like, I am like in shock. I can't move. It was just so funny. Yeah, a great experience. So it's funny because I know I'll get a lot of heat on this, but I grew up in Eastern Iowa. So I always thought I would go to the University of Iowa, because it was so close to my house. Well, I decided that it was too close to my house. So I actually ended up going and transferring. I played basketball my freshman year and I transferred into Iowa State. And I finished my degree at Iowa State. So I'm an Iowa State grad, but a Hawkeye fan. So I do get a lot of heat for that, but I cheer for both. I cheer for both unless they're playing each other. And then I do go with
You got to pick a
where I
side.
grew up. Yeah, grew up a Hawkeye. So yeah, and my girls are, obviously both went to college there. So, and my son has decided to do trade school, so he's not going to college. But we are, our whole household is diehard Hawkeyes for sure.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well,
Yeah, it was
sports are the
amazing.
best, right?
They are.
So
They are. They're the best.
so back to the business side. Now, I know, getting to know you and preparing for this, we talked a little bit about delegation and delegate to elevate. You have a literal list on your desk with that title, and you admitted that you're still doing things that maybe you could hand off to someone else. What is it about being type A and in control that makes letting go feel like a risk, even when logically it's not? Because I know a lot of listeners struggle with this, so I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, the struggle is real, honestly. So I have decided. I had just recently joined business coaching. That's one of those, like, obviously, as we've discussed, my personality is all in. So I spent a lot of time praying on it, thinking on it. Do I really want to do this? Because I know they're going to point out flaws in my business and I have to be willing to change it. Otherwise, there's no point in doing business coaching, right? So I always call it being open to receive. And I really wasn't open to receive last year. I was really pouring into my team and spending a lot of time on different aspects, obviously still producing. I'm a producing manager. But I kind of came to a realization in the fall that, yep, I've been thinking on this. In my heart, I know I want to do this. But I knew I needed to really reevaluate my system, my process, because I need to become more efficient. I am type A. I am in control. If you were to ask me about any single file, I could tell you exactly what condition was left, what is needed, what I expect will come, from an underwriter, which makes me really great at my job. And I've been very prideful on that. But it also doesn't help me, like you said, when my business coach is like, okay, take your tasks that you don't like and start writing those down. And that's been really eye-opening. And you're right, delegate to elevate. And then realistically, of the tasks that you don't like, is there someone that you could hire, $15 an hour, $20 an hour? We know the money part doesn't necessarily matter, but could they do that task where it doesn't affect the client experience and then still have you be more efficient and do what you're really good at, which is sales, talking to realtors and financial planners, all the other things. And that's been very eye-opening. And it is on my desk and it is a list. Good old school, write it down, right? Yeah, how I can delegate to elevate my business. And yeah, there's quite a bit on that list that I need to work on easing that out. And that's just, I trust my team around me. I have great assistant, great processor. That's not our operations where I work is amazing. So it's not really their issue. It's a me issue. And I know it. So that is my goal for the year, is to really start to get a better fine-tuned process and do what I'm best at. And that's what I need to focus on.
Yeah. Well, I wish you the best of luck in that. I know it's a hard shift for a lot of people to make. It comes up all the time. But it is sort of one of those turning points of an originator's business where when they can start giving up those little things, those things that, yeah, someone else could probably do that and do it just as well, maybe even better than you, then you can focus on those high revenue activities, the things that are bringing more volume into the branch and into your own personal finances. And that's a moment where things really start to shift for people, where they add capacity, right? So Amber, as we kind of wrap things up, kind of getting towards the end here, as I understood from you, you're kind of a word of the year kind of gal, right? Somebody who comes up with that word for the year, and your word for this year is intentional. Yep. You talked about building legacy, creating real freedom, one day taking a vacation where you actually take a vacation and don't work the whole time, right? Or part of the time. What does that look like practically for you right now to build a business that doesn't fall apart when you walk away from it, when you actually do take some time away?
Yeah. So truly, like I mentioned, just the delegate to elevate, right? Just looking at it. And part of the business coaching was the reason that I did it, for multiple reasons, but one of the main one was I'm realizing that I need to be able to create a system and a team that if I am on vacation, which is really important, right? Spending family time, that is the top of the list. My family is everything. So it's faith and family, right? And then work is next. So it was like trying to figure out what that looked like. And also, my daughter, my oldest, graduated with an accounting degree in finance. And she was like, so, where's the ending to this? Or what are you thinking? And, she's looking at her career, trying to figure it out, and has seen, so many benefits of what I do. The flexibility is the most piece, really, especially as a mom. For me, that's been just amazing. But I was like, I don't know. I haven't thought that far. And I am, as you said, I've been in the business a long time. It is time to at least consider, like, what does that look like? And if you don't start doing it now, it'll never happen, right? If you don't plan, it's never going to happen. So it's just, how do I do that? And so it's really delving into the better system, a better process, adding someone to the team realistically, that I can mentor and do business with, and that has the same goals, same values, putting the client first, and then really giving up some control, which is, it will happen, but it is going to be a work in progress. I'm very aware that I have some control type A issues, but I'm also ready to do that. And I know that now that I've seen it, there are a lot of people who go on vacation, loan officers, that don't work the entire time. And I'm not saying the entire time I'm working, but I am taking calls. I am following up. Those are things that I really, I need and I deserve. And the clients deserve, somebody who can step away. And it's good for your soul, right? It's just good.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that's really the ultimate goal, is to make it, keep the client experience the exact same, but surround myself with the right process and team to have the experience stay the same, but then I can step back at times.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great. And I know you'll do it because I know just from getting to know you that you are a determined person. And, it seems like when you set your mind to something, it gets done. So I'm looking forward to kind of following this arc over the next 12 months to, get an idea of some of the changes that you make and the impact that it has on you and all those great things. So it'll be fun to follow along. But Amber, before we say goodbye, I know I've asked you a lot of questions. We've talked about a lot. I want to give you one opportunity here at the end to just kind of maybe speak your mind. If there's anything I didn't ask you a question about, or something that we're hoping to have an opportunity to talk on, or advice you'd like to share with anybody who might be listening.
I think that a lot of times we're thrown obstacles and we just look at it as like, that's it. Like, I wasn't meant to be, right? I mean, if that was the case, I wouldn't be where I am today, right? I would have just felt like, oh, I already put all this time in to, pre-med, I need to stay that path. So, for me, it's faith. It's having a relationship with God and understanding, making that first, and then focusing on family. It's just setting priorities realistically, and goals are so important. And if you don't track, if you aren't tracking what you're doing, that's one thing that I've really been focused on is, you have to track in order to have results. So you can have results, but you're not going to be able to figure out how you can make the best changes and improve any type of, whether it's a relationship with your, spouse, or, your kids, or whatever it is. So I just think you should always be looking to grow and improve. And that's one thing. Like I said, I'm starting business coach again after years of taking off business coaching. After 26 years in the business, most people probably think that's crazy, but I feel like it was time. It's time to really be open to receive, open to improve, and finding how I can be more efficient and be better. I just think you just have to always be growing and always improving, and be open to, there's signs out there all the time. I had multiple signs that were like, I've been thinking about it. I've talked to my husband about it. We talked about, the financial commitment. And I just said, I have to be all in, like, or I won't do it. But then there was multiple signs that happened that was like, yeah, this is it. It's on your, excuse me, it's on my heart, but it's on my heart because it's meant to.
Yeah.
Meant to.
Yeah. Well, I think your journey is a good testament of, our plans are great, but God's plans are perfect.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think we know what we want, or We've got these great ideas, and there's a stirring inside of us that says, maybe not that, maybe this instead. And it's a choice, it's an obedience thing to follow that stirring and really explore that, and to take time and build that relationship with God, and have that conversation and find out, is this from you? Are you telling me? Are you leading me in this direction? Because I want to do this,
Right.
but I
Yep.
also want to follow you and be obedient. So it's not easy, but I think when you surrender, and you'll find out that his plans are perfect. So
Yep. They are.
anyway, Amber, I want to thank you for being on the lowdown and for sharing your story and just being a part of this kind of community that's being built over here. It's awesome to talk to people like you and hear what's going on and all the cool things you're doing, and the things you want to do in the future, and the struggle, and all that's wonderful. So I look forward to, just staying in touch, and wish you nothing but the best. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Connor. I appreciate it.